Senator, while indoctrinated, could not explain his toxicity.
You should not listen to men's rights advocates if you want to know what they have to say.
Greetings, white male film critics, Space Force cadets, and Tuesday Thoughts, and welcome to HBR News number 165. Stephen Galloway's life destroyed, the N-word is Netflix, woman freezes sperm, and there's more than that. I am your host, Brian Martinez, and I'm here with my esteemed alt-right, entitled, rape apologizing, room cleaning, incel, red pill, Reddit posting, fedora tipping, fascist, Pepe loving, Trump supporting, Nazi apologizing, this is America memeing, women enslaving poo-poo heads. I'm going to see if I can get through all of that without having to take a breath.
We're not any of those things, folks. Not including alt-right, we're not that either.
No.
Is it the beginning of the list?
We will decide what you are. All right,
That's okay. The alt-right is just a figment of everybody's imagination anyway.
Yeah. Where was I? Nazi apologizing, this America. Okay, I read that. Poo-poo heads. That was the one that I think we probably actually are. To look at the best feels, funnies, and what the fucks to discuss Clam Slam Badger style. So let's get started, shall we? Today's polecat panel consists of... Why do I call it the polecat panel? Shit. Today's panel. There's no polecat anymore. I've been doing this for too long. I didn't catch that. We have Jake
I
M.
still identify as polecat. It's fine.
Oh, okay.
I also identify as panda and badger and human being from time to time.
And
not a
Codger.
furry. Definitely not a furry.
Definitely not that. Today's panel consists of Jake M., Wallahannon, Dr. Camera Random, and me, the E-God in charge. We have a great show lined up for you guys today, so please be sure to continue the conversation both in the chat and in the comments section. On this week's HBR News Show, we have lots of great stories. There's tragedy, there's joy, there's stuff that we haven't been able to make up our mind on yet that we'll get into. And then there's just the weird and crazy. So please stick around for all that, and also stick around for the patron-only after show. So on this patron-only after show, we're going to be looking at a blog post. It is a special one entitled, I believe it's, hold on just a moment, I need to bring it up. I have too many windows. The Truth About Sexual Harassment and Board Gaming. Yes, the truth about sexual harassment in board games. And the fun fact about this article, I did include a link to it originally, but it's gone now. Whoever wrote the blog took it down. So I currently, because I already had it up, I still have it. So I think I'm gonna need to archive this. If you guys know how I can do that, maybe let me know in the comments or something. So I'd like to try to preserve this link, or at least this page, because it's too entertaining not to. So if you would like,
removed it. I was going to say, if they've removed it, the only thing I can think of is a screenshot. If it's already been removed...
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, it's possible that somebody else archived it already before it was removed. You can actually search...
Yeah. So it had to be archived. It would have to be archived before it was taken down.
Hey, Brian, check the chat. I got it for you.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
I mean, somebody did. Somebody archived it before it was removed.
Good. All right. So yeah, I do have the link. So I will put the archive link in the low bar if you want to look at it, but not until after the show. So if you would like to be a participant or an audience member for the after shows, please consider becoming a patron at www.patreon.com/honeybadgerradio. And if you don't want to wake up one morning and find yourself unable to find our content because YouTube finally dropped the axe on our channel, go to badgerfeed.com. That's badgerfeed.com. That's where you will find all of the goods. In addition, I think there was one more thing that I wanted to say about this. We are still doing our fundraiser to get the Badgers to Britain. This is take 2. for the ICMI. We have a lot of great interviewees that we'd like to get some info from. There are college professors, there are sociologists actually getting involved with men's issues. I know that sounds crazy. This is why we need to be there, so we can be firsthand able to talk to these people and maybe, you know, show them to you, put them up on the website, run some streams, do some interviews. I know that you probably enjoyed the interviews we did last year at ICMI in Australia. I believe we have a clip from that I'm going to show you later on, but the conversation with Cassie J was particularly good. So please consider doing that. We're still in the process of trying to raise money to go to Britain. And lastly, I wanted to promote something. Elizabeth, I'm sorry, I have to find it here. Elizabeth Hobson, who was formerly a member of the Liberty Bells, is also doing a misogynation party on the 18th of August. So I will include a link with all the details. If you are in the UK and you want to check it out, it's in August 18th on a Saturday, and Elizabeth Hobson is hosting. So, and yeah, you should really check it out. I had Elizabeth on the show along with the other Liberty Bells a while back. Look them up. Okay, so that out of the way, I guess we're gonna get into the stories. So I'm going to hand it off to Mike J. Mike, would you mind let's get into the short stories.
Certainly, Brian. Thank you. So the first one here is just about Clos Segal, some names some of you might recognize, and if not, we'll tell you all about it. Clos Segal, indie game developer and resident of Portland, died last Wednesday in an apparent suicide by means of self-immolation. Segal limped on crutches to a Portland park before reading out a manifesto that a bystander said, quote, was about homelessness and mental health issues. Segal then produced a bottle of flammable liquid, which she used to douse herself with before self-immolating. Despite the efforts of onlookers, the flames, quote, would just not go out until they came over with a fire extinguisher. According to one bystander, despite being rushed to the hospital, Segal died later that day. Segal's name might sound familiar to anyone involved in the early days of #GamerGate. Segal was the victim of an anti-GamerGate harasser who attempted to pose as a GamerGate supporter in order to get her to commit suicide, which she did attempt. Segal would later go on, unsuccessfully, to try and guilt game developer Marcus Notch Pearson and YouTuber Felix into donating to her on Twitter. Segal also started a minor feud with Brianna Wu in early 2015.
All right, real quick, there was for some reason the audio dropped when you were saying, after you said Felix. That's Felix PewDiePie, so you guys know. So yeah, this woman had attempted suicide in the past, and she actually went through with it and self-immolated. So I don't know if there's anybody who has any quick thoughts on this. You remember her? Yeah, so that's. I just thought it was a story that should definitely be shared. I don't know, Mike. Do you have any thoughts?
It's a fucked up way to die. It's a very fucked up way to choose to die, given that how wrong it could go, both that you might not die and could be horribly. You know, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, no, I can't think of anything sensible or funny to say. This month's Munted News is going to be dark, man.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people dying horribly in parks. A lot of people killing themselves.
Okay.
I do have a little more just supplementary information, just some other things that didn't quite make the write-up. This person really had some really deep-seated issues. I mean, this is stuff that went on before and beyond Gamergate. They were trying to raise money for what they called a life-threatening disease, but it was more or less actually for gender reassignment surgery. And when that got discovered, a lot of people actually got pretty mad, which I can sort of understand. But the response I saw many take after that was pretty abhorrent. They opened up quite a can of worms on her, And a lot of harassers came out of the woodwork. Like, if you want to actually point at actual examples of harassment, here you go. This is one. And this wasn't, like I said, the first suicide attempt. There were numerous ones before this. And it seems in the last few days she really made it clear that she was going to get ready to try and kill herself again. But it just seems like nobody paid attention. Not even when, I think 2 or 3 days before this, the cops had to be called to the residence because she was threatening, I believe, herself with a machete. So very, very sad, very,
I mean, she's
very horrible.
Sounds like she was in pain. I mean, there's a spectrum of different kinds of suicide. A lot of them are where they range from malaise to extreme pain, and anyone can imagine there's a certain threshold of pain at which anyone would kill themselves rather than go through. And it sounds like she was very much in that area of the spectrum. It sounds like someone who wanted to die because they were in so much pain in some way or another.
Well, and I hate to make this a particular gender issue, but there's a higher rate of suicide among people who are transgender. And part of it is that fear of lack of acceptance. I mean, she felt like she had to lie to people about why she was collecting money. And of course, people got mad at her for lying to them about why she was collecting money, because people are going to get mad when you lie to them about that. It turns out, I think sometimes this kind of thing ends up being a self-fulfilling prophecy there. I find it really disturbing that the police investigated a self-harm attempt with a machete and didn't follow through with trying to have the person committed. Because that should have been the next step. You go to somebody's place to investigate a report that they are threatening themselves with a deadly weapon, and it cannot be argued rationally that a machete is not a deadly weapon when it's going to be turned on a person. You see something like that, you should be following through with. There are mental health procedures. There are procedures for that you can have the person taken in, and at the very least they will examine for this kind of ideation and this kind of tendencies, and there isn't any reason why they shouldn't have done that following an incident like that. And it makes me wonder what happened there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's also Neela Possessed said in the chat. It's not a super chat, but I thought I would read it out. She says Hannah Wallen is on one side it is lack of acceptance, on the other it's passability is also the key point in suicide attempts. Whether or not
that is true.
The transitioning is working out for them, or they're passive. They pass. Well, either way, I thought that, and I mean, I think Mike J, you were the one that brought this story to my attention. I think it's definitely something that we should, draw attention to, because right now the news seems focused on artificial sadness that's not actually happening to get people to do things. So how about actual tragedies? So there's that. I guess we'll move on to the next story, Mike.
Certainly. Thank you, Brian. So we have life from death. After the untimely death of her boyfriend, Alia Cresswell from Queensland, Australia, was granted permission from the court to harvest his sperm. Cresswell's boyfriend, Joshua Davies, had planned to purchase a house with her and eventually have children as part of their ongoing 3-year relationship. These plans were tragically cut short by Davies' inexplicable suicide in August of 2016. But with the full support of Davies' parents and the help of several of Davies' friends who testified to his intent to eventually have children, Cresswell was granted permission to harvest Davies' sperm for in vitro fertilization. Bill Potts, deputy president of the Queensland Law Society, calls this case a, quote, landmark decision. Potts continues, quote, never before in Queensland has the sperm of a dead person been allowed to be extracted and then used for the purposes of procreation. It is indeed a historic and very interesting decision that's been made, which has significant implications both for family law and for succession law. Whilst I'm sure the applicant is overjoyed, and she has every right to be, this is an area which is ripe for legislation.
Yeah, I've been staring at this story for a few minutes before we came on, trying to figure out what I think, and I'm still not sure what I think.
Yeah,
Before I did this sort of thing for a living, it would definitely be not touching this one with a 60-foot pole situation. But now this is what we do. We have opinions on this sort of thing, so I feel like I should have one. It sounds like the kind of thing that should be put in one's will and testament, right? Is what you can and can't do with my body and my DNA. Right? Is it?
Yeah, it does.
Well, yeah.
I mean, that's a good point. I had
putting
not
it in
thought
there
about.
right now.
What was that?
Yeah, it would definitely.
Mike, did you say? I didn't catch what you said.
I said I'm going to put that in mine right now. My will
Oh
and
yeah,
testament.
yeah, definitely.
It would definitely be something that should be. You should definitely say what can and can't be done with your body, either in a last will and testament or another legal document. I mean, this is the same type of issue as: do you want to be an organ donor? Do you want to be buried? Do you want to be cremated? Do you want to donate your body to a local university to be a cadaver that's studied by medical students? And is it okay for your spouse or fiance to harvest your gametes to create a baby without you being there anymore because you're dead?
Here's a question.
The one thing I would be worried about with this is she's going to be creating a baby whose father is dead.
Mm-hmm.
That's really borderline at best to me. I'm thinking this kid is going to grow up without a living biological father. And either she's going to marry another man and the child is going to be raised by a man who is not his or her biological father, or she's going to raise the child as a single mother. And neither one of these is the ideal situation. If she gets married and wants to have a family, she should do that with the man she marries. And if she is talking about being a single mom, here we are in a society now where nobody considers the welfare of the child in the question of whether somebody should deliberately become a single mom. And I've done articles and videos on this. There is a significant amount of data demonstrating the importance of a father in a child's life. And it's not minor. It's a very big deal when you take the father out of a child's life. We're talking increased risk of a huge variety of dysfunctions, including an increase, like a 50% increase in a child's chances of growing up to get in trouble with the law, and the child's chances of growing up to end up depending on welfare, the child's chances of growing up to become a single parent themselves. These are not things that you should just risk because you want something. And it really, that's the one thing about this that people think of it as so romantic. Oh, she loved him so much, she still wants to have his baby even though he's gone, and it'll be somebody she can remember him by and all this other stuff. But the welfare of the child isn't even under consideration here, and that is really unfair to the child. And it's not necessarily cruel for her to want to parent that child, but it is definitely very, very careless for her already to want to become a single mother to that child and have that child grow up with a single mom and a dead father on purpose.
We don't know, how suitable an environment it's going to be for someone's mental health. I keep looking back at the words inexplicable suicide. Some inexplicable suicides are sort of chemically, so they experience a chemical imbalance, like from a tumor or something else. But maybe there's another reason it was inexplicable.
I can tell you the reason I put that exact word in there, because that was my word that I used. Because the sentence within the...
I did read the article. Apparently, like he only he sought
help for depression
in the last year of his life, but it was less than that. But it was normal before then, as far as anyone knows. As far as he has let on to his closest loved ones, I guess is the sly half point I'm trying to make.
Mm-hmm.
And to what Hannah said, I have a tiny bit of a response to that. Not really a counterpoint, just a response. It sounds like, at the very least, the parents from the deceased man's side are going to be somewhat involved in this, as they already did give her the blessing. And there's a sentence here, I guess, about the courts said that the child would have the benefit, while the child would not have a benefit of the father, there would be support from a paternal and maternal grandfather. And of course, that can never replace a father. Nothing can. But I think that's possibly the next best thing.
Well, grandparents are really an important part of a kid's life too. And this is something that grandparents have a different influence than the father does. And I will bet you, if they did research on children who had close relationships with their grandparents versus children who didn't have close relationships, they would find specific benefits that are related to grandparents. And I'd also bet you they would be different in a lot of ways than the benefits that are related to the father. Because the problem is, it's great when the grandparents take an interest and a position in the child's life like that, in a situation where the father isn't there, because the child does need that support. But it's not the same to deliberately put a child in that position as it is to basically to engage in damage control when a child is put in that situation outside of your ability to prevent that.
So, okay, here you go. If you're a man married to a woman and you have a disease that's terminal but not hereditary, and you'll be dead within a year, is it wrong to let your wife have your child, knowing that you'll be gone in the next year?
Is that worse than actively impregnating your wife and you both know that you're going to be dead within a year anyway?
I wouldn't do it on purpose.
Well, no, but I'm saying, I'm asking I guess I'm proposing, I'm adding to the question that Mike is sort of proposing, which is, is if, because French Honey Badger, by the way, he gave us $5 and he said, single mothers who are single because their husband died do not display the same dysfunctional patterns as single mothers normally do. Like, otherwise, he says maybe this will work fine here. Maybe, as long as the grandparents are involved and stuff.
That you can look up to,
the one thing that's different here is they didn't become parents and then he died. They didn't become parents and then find out he was gonna die. So this is still a single mother by choice. I'm a little leery of it.
No,
and it's just me. I'm just going to be a little leery of that, because I guess you could say, in terms of what can go wrong when you plan to have a child. I've learned some hard lessons myself on that. And there are things that you can go through as a parent and that your child goes through because you didn't plan right, that are gut-wrenching and heartbreaking, and it's not something to take lightly. So I wouldn't plan something like that on purpose. Other people might. And at the other end of it, I don't think the government should be involved in making that decision either. I mean, if I had a friend that was making that decision, I'd give her advice, or I'd give him advice. But I certainly wouldn't want the government to come in and make the decision for him or her. And in this situation, it's probably not wrong for the court to rule that the government cannot stop her from doing that. But I still think the choice to do it is ill-advised.
I have another question I wanted to bring up that I thought of while I read this article. How long does the sperm stay alive in the human male's testicles? Like, how long does sperm live if he died and they were able to extract it? And also, if it's not that long, was that one of the first things that ran through her head when he died? Or was that something that she was thinking about before when she thought he might die? Or was it something that they even discussed potentially? Like where he says, well, maybe if I die, you can like extract my sperm? Because, okay, so Wizencraft says sperm can live for a week. So that means that in within a week of his death, she was talking about and getting sperm extracted from his balls. I'm not saying that
I can do you one better, Brian.
Okay.
The article specifically references it was removed some 48 hours after his death.
48 hours after his death. So I'm not gonna pretend to know what she's thinking. All I know is that they were acting very fast, considering he had just committed suicide. Okay, so French Honey Badger gives us another $5 and says sperm lives for 5 days, but they usually freeze it when they extract it. Sure. Yeah, somebody said save the jizz. It seems like that's what they were going. My boyfriend died. Save his sperm ASAP.
Well, maybe he wanted his jizz saved. This is the thing.
Yeah.
I keep coming back. Don't know to what degree he would have wanted at least his jizz saved. We don't know what degree he would have been happy with his child being raised by a single mother, as long as it's the woman he loves. But it's a bad decision, but it's his only decision. It's either that or give his sperm to some other woman he's never met, or don't give it to anyone and just die, I guess.
And the other part of that is grief can be really weird. Like really strange things happen in your brain when you are grieving. And sometimes you have a period of just abject numbness where it really doesn't hit you. And you think you're fine. And you're going to go on and you make really rational decisions because you're not sad, even though you should be. And it may take a day or two or even a week. And you'll be doing something that doesn't have anything to do with the person that you're grieving over, or and all of a sudden it'll hit you and you're devastated, and it's very strange. So it's entirely possible that within the first 48 hours she had those periods of numbness and felt capable of making rational decisions, and one of the thoughts she had was, isn't there any way I can preserve him in some way, and yeah, I can have a baby. And whether it's entirely rational or not, it's not necessarily that she wasn't grieving at that point in time. It's just that, like I said, it does really strange things with your brain.
It was one other thing that I was thinking about too is, and I couldn't find anything to confirm it. They look young. For the most part, or these are old pictures. They were together 3 years before, he killed himself. But then right here, she looks a little bit older. She's got some lines. But what I was wondering about is maybe was she like possibly getting to that age where, her biological clock is ticking, and that's why she felt like she needed to act. Or maybe they have been talking about it. I don't know. I don't pretend to know. But there are other, this sort of thing raises more questions than it answers, is where I'm sitting. So I'm more like, I'm with Mike on, I'm not really sure what to think of it. It could have been consensual. I don't want to presume the worst, but is it the wisest decision? That I question as well, because Hannah's definitely right about if you want to improve the odds for the child, but I don't know.
I can't imagine this is the first time this has happened. Surely it's happened before, because men die all the time, and they've got wills and testaments, and they have wills and testaments in which they've stipulated that, yes, this woman can do what she likes with my DNA. Presumably, this is just the first time it's happened without it being in a will and testament, and that's what they're doing. And that is something I should have an opinion about, because that's wrong, right? Is it? Yeah, I'm going to carry on thinking about what I think. This is quite a head scratcher. It's
Yeah.
a whole body scratch.
We'll definitely follow back up. Maybe she'll make the news again. We'll see.
Also, I got an answer for you, Brian. She's 25.
She's 25, so the eggs are starting to go bad, but she probably doesn't know that.
Oh heck, I didn't have mine until I was 27. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of women having babies older. Medical science has greatly improved the chances of a healthy baby at older ages. 25 is not really that old.
Mm-hmm. No, it's just scientifically that's when they start, on the sort of downward path. But most women, I would imagine, don't know that. They don't usually start worrying about their eggs until they're in their mid-30s. So at least these days, I know that back in the day it was different. All right, well, anyway, let's move on to the next story, Mr. Mike.
Thank you, Brian. So, rise high, fall fast. Jonathan Friedland, Netflix PR chief, has been fired from the company after his, quote, descriptive use of the N-word on at least 2 occasions. Remember that, descriptive use of the N-word. That's going to be important later. According to Netflix CEO Reed Hastings, in a memo sent to employees of Netflix, Hastings describes both incidents in detail. The first incident, quote, the first incident was several months ago in a PR meeting about sensitive words. Several people afterwards told him how inappropriate and hurtful his use of the N-word was, and Jonathan apologized to those that had been in the meeting. We hope this was an awful anomaly, never to be repeated. 3 months later, he spoke to a meeting of our black employees at Netflix Group and did not bring it up, which was understood by many in the meeting to mean he didn't care and didn't accept accountability for his words. The second incident, which I only heard about this week, was a few days after the first incident. This time, Jonathan said the N-word again to 2 of our black employees in HR who were trying to help him deal with the original offense. The second incident confirmed a deep lack of understanding and convinced me to let Johnson go now, end quote. Friedland tweeted after his departure that, quote, leaders have to be beyond reproach in the example we set, and, quote, I feel awful about the distress this lapse caused to people at the company. Though in a now deleted tweet, Friedland later stated, thanks, rise high, fall fast, all on a couple of words.
Is there such a thing as a little bit of Tourette's? We find ourselves saying something like, I have a little bit of OCD. Yeah, a little bit of OCD is just normal order. It's like non-obsessive, non-compulsive order. That's not, you can't call it that. But every one of these syndromes has a sort of regular sort of version in neurotypical people. Some people are a bit obsessive compulsive, and some people are a little bit Tourette's. Some people just can't help blurting out the worst word they can think of every now and again,
He was using the word to talk to people about sensitive words. So he was using it in the descriptive term. Like, here are some words that you probably shouldn't say. And then he said it, and people freaked out at him. He had to say the word so that they would know what the word was. He was using it in the context of, here are some words you shouldn't say. And they freaked out at him.
Guys, there's a list of words that you are not allowed to say here, but we can't tell you what any of them are, but we assume that you know, and if you say them, you're fired. But don't
Yes.
say any of the words.
Can you tell me any of these words?
We're not going to tell you what they are.
Oh my God. This is the dumbest story I've ever heard. I was joking around with my wife about this story, and I was like, it's getting to the point now where if you say N-word, people will still want you fired because they're going to be like, we know what you mean by that. We know what that actually means. You're getting away with saying it. That's what it is. That's what this story is. He was saying the word to describe words that people shouldn't say that are considered to be sensitive words. And then they got him fired, or they complained because they thought that he was actually using the excuse speaking about something in specific context as a means to get away with saying the word. And so he had to, there had to be some kind of a response. There had to be punishment. And I think that it's getting to the point where if people start saying N-word, they're going to get in trouble. Because people say, oh, you're saying N-word, but I know what you really want to say. That's like the dog whistle to end all dog whistles. Like the frequency on it is so high that only the wokest people, i.e. Netflix, can actually hear it. That's how high-pitched that wolf whistle.
You're going to stop calling it the N-word and start calling it the word that I do not have the racial sensitivity to say. But that's going to get put on the same euphemism treadmill, and then anyone who says that is like, you're a racist dog whistler. That's a word for a racist dog whistler.
Exactly.
So my question is, did they, as penance, demand that he return with a shrubbery?
Yes.
And ask him to cut down the tallest tree in the forest with a herring?
Knee, my dear, and furthermore, knee.
Yes, the N-word it is. So that was just really funny. I'm sorry and you know what's the funny thing about Netflix is? Netflix has a show called Dear White People where that word is used. They also have several films where that's used, and they have The Walking Dead, in which case, I forget the actor's name, but a white guy says the word as in character on the show. So they're okay with it.
Michael Rooker.
Thank you, Michael Rooker. He does. He says it to another person. It's like in the first season.
Their brains are going to explode when they see Pulp Fiction. There's a scene where Quentin Tarantino just fucking yells it. And he wrote it. He wrote that scene. He really wanted to stand in front of a black guy and yell that word.
Samuel L. Jackson, no less.
Exactly,
You knew Sam would be okay with it because Sam's cool, but could have been anyone.
Okay, so I don't know, guys. Give me your thoughts on that. How this is just political correctness run. I don't even know if it's run. It's just so. It's so ridiculous. We are reaching woke levels that I never thought should be possible. That's what's happening. That's what's happening there. So, moving on to the next story. There's nothing written up for this, but I wanted to point this out. So, you might know Cassie J. I want to play this clip for you. This is from this is from an interview we did with her while she was in Australia. Let me read these super chats first, though, because they are piling up. So Frank Tomeo gives us $2 Canadian and says he talked to HR. Bad choice. Yeah, stay away from that. Syria De Flora gives us $5 and says Hawaii passed a law letting women talk about their pay without fear of punishment. And the Great Indoors gives us €2 and says dead Netflix storage. Yeah. The N-word is Netflix itself. You know, it's just, I think 4chan, didn't they do a prank? They did a prank where they made up words to represent various racial groups that were innocuous words that people would use. And they were a means to get away with saying the words without repercussions, basically, because they were just regular common words. And I think they were making a point, which I find pretty interesting, which is that these words, they have power because we give it to them. But I personally don't believe that they should have it at this level. It's pretty nuts. I don't know. All right, so let's play the clip of Cassie J, and then I'll explain why this is relevant, because I think this is a pretty good story.
Yes, the biggest positive influence I've had after making the Red Pill movie is how it changed my relationship with my now fiance for the better. Because when I started dating him, it was 2 years before I started making the Red Pill movie, and I'd already been a feminist of many, many years, and we got into a lot of fights. And I usually started them, and I walked through life with a chip on my shoulder, thinking that, you know, the whole world was against me because I was a woman. And I brought that into my relationship, and he, you know, was a very kind man and wanted to stay with me and support me, so he wouldn't challenge me on those views or the fights that I would, you know, start about that. So then I started making the Red Pill movie and really started to put myself in his shoes and really think critically, who has the privilege in our relationship, and if I could change roles, would I want to? And I realized the answer was no, and I realized I was the privileged one and how much sacrifice he made to our family and our relationship. And so now we're in such a better place now, and he's just been so supportive throughout making the film. The film wouldn't even have been made without his support. He really, was emotional support, financial support, and just encouraging through this whole process. And he's not a men's rights activist. He didn't influence me to make this film at all. But he recognizes that it's important what I'm doing, and he believes in letting me pursue what I care about.
All right. And as a consequence of that, over the weekend on Saturday, Cassie J got married to her fiance, and she has said that part of what allowed them to sort of take their relationship to the next level was her making of the red pill. And so I want to say congratulations to Cassie J. And if you guys can, send her a nice message on Twitter, or if you have Facebook, you can probably do it there too. The feminism, rejecting feminism, moving away from that, has made her happier. Just pointing out, it's good. This is good for her, and I'm happy
This
for
can
her.
happen. This can happen if you try to red pill your fiance or wife, but it doesn't happen in 100% of cases, folks. This is a success story, and she's an inspiration to any of the women who are watching to see that it can be done. But that doesn't mean you can suddenly talk to your long-term girlfriend or wife about this stuff, and she'll be a unicorn as well. You might experience difficulty, but it's a very good reason to get this out of the way before it becomes a serious relationship. Have this discussion. It's going to be tricky to bring up, but bring it up before it gets serious, because she might be a psycho. She might be a Cassie J, but she might be a big red. You don't know.
In a Cassie J's clothing.
God, that's terrifying.
Yeah. It's going to be a tight fit.
I've actually seen a relationship, or the results of a relationship like that. That's the 7 years in hell case. That's how it started out. A big red in Cassie J clothing.
Yeah. Ugh. Jay Damali makes an interesting point. He says, listening to hundreds of hours of footage made her rethink her stances. If that's what it takes, how is there any hope for others? Well, I think Cassie J was pretty hardcore before. She was actually intent on...
She supplied us with 2 hours of footage. It's a fucking good start, isn't it?
Yeah, she started us with 2 hours of footage, her film. And look at how much content we've made. So, and I know that there are women that watch... Ilya Silverthorne says I'm watching. I think that's a woman. So no, it's definitely. All I'm saying is, congratulations to Cassie and how her interaction with the MRM and members of the movement, and her questioning her, and also her interaction with feminists, like the prominent ones, like the women who work at Ms. Magazine and so on, and various college professors, and. I forget his name. I forget his name. The guy.
Michael Kimmel.
Michael Kimmel. Yes.
Yeah.
That'll do it. I think that'll turn you away. So, but I'm happy for her, and I hope that they stay together a long time, and I hope that this is good for them. So, does anybody else have any thoughts? Or just move on to the last story.
Just having met Cassie J at the Red Pill premiere, I'm never met a more genuine person who seemed like they were really in this for all the right reasons, and I wish her and her husband all the happiness that they are most certainly due.
Yeah. Tyler Preston says making the red pill is Cassie J's moment after that she was red pilled. Actually, Cassie says that she got red pilled during the editing process. So while she was making it, she was still very critical, and she was still convincing herself that, feminism was the path. It wasn't until after she had all the footage and she was basically figuring out what's going to go on the cutting room floor and what's going to go into her movie that she was red pilled by it.
It's a hard journey to make.
It's
A lot of.
It's called a red pill moment, but it's almost always more of a journey than a moment.
Oh yeah, and it's like I refer to it as a slow drip. Like that's kind of how it was with me. Although I was never a feminist. I was closer to gynocentric, a lot closer to gynocentric when I started out, and I really didn't think that the whole legal system was as bad as it is. I thought it was local. This one judge was an idiot. Well, that judge was an idiot too. Gee, that judge was an idiot too. Gosh, there's a lot of idiot judges in Ohio. Gee, they're in several different counties. Now I'm hearing about it from all over the country. I guess it's not just a local problem. It takes sometimes years for people to learn what she learned just in the process of making this film. And there are feminists in academia who routinely look at information that should red pill them and work very hard to rationalize remaining anti-male, right down to the point of looking at things like data on people who hit because of a particular reason in a relationship, like they feel disrespected, and turn around and say, well, when a man hits because he feels disrespected, he's being coercive and controlling. When a woman hits because she feels disrespected, she's engaging in self-defense against being treated with a lack of respect. And that's how they remain blue-pilled. So for somebody who was in that end of feminism, because the documentary film thing is kind of an academic thing, to look through all of this and take an honest look at it, even though her psyche wanted to fight really hard and say, no, let's not take an honest look at this. Let's maintain our outlook because that's easier and more comfortable. And she instead turns around and takes the plunge and lets herself be uncomfortable and takes an honest look at what she's seeing and realizes she has to change her mind about some things if she wants to remain an honest person. That's actually very admirable. A lot of people do not do that.
Indeed. Yeah, it's very admirable. Well, best wishes, Cassie. And let's move on to the next story. This is our last story, but this is the big one. So, UBC's shameful mistake. Stephen Galloway's life has been falling apart the past 2 years. Galloway is an acclaimed author and was the chair of University of British Columbia's creative writing department, until allegations lost him his job and good name. Since being labeled a sexual predator, he's had near constant suicidal thoughts, confronted the prospect of bankruptcy, and has been alienated from his literary community from which he was once a prominent center. There is a crumb of justice in store for Galloway. From the Globe and Mail, quote, on Friday, an arbiter awarded Mr. Galloway $167,000 stemming from a grievance launched by the UBC Faculty Association over the former chair of the creative writing department's firing in the summer of 2016. The arbiter found that certain communication by the university disseminated at the time of Mr. Galloway's dismissal contravened his privacy rights and caused harm to his reputation. However, Galloway's name and reputation are unrecoverable. He told the Globe and Mail that, quote, I haven't got so much as an email about writing in 2 years. I have no publishing prospects. I will never teach again. We've, that is he and his wife, have 4 children between them. We've been living on a credit line. I'll be bankrupt as soon as the thing is settled. I will have to sell my house. I didn't win anything. I've won a moral victory, but my life is destroyed. Back in 2015, when the allegations first emerged, there was an investigation by former BC Supreme Court Judge Mary Ellen Boyd. Even though she found the allegations likely to not have happened, she was fired by UBC. The school reasoned that Galloway had, quote, a record of misconduct that resulted in an irreparable breach of trust. From the article, quote, the school said It took into consideration allegations which were not subject to Mrs. Boyd's investigation and were never disclosed. The claim was Galloway had violently raped an unnamed student 4 years earlier. The unnamed student, known as MC, that stands for main complainant, wasn't the only one the complainant said she could bring forward with studies of abuse from Galloway, but 19 others. To complicate matters, MC was a student Galloway was having an affair with. MC is 5 years Galloway's senior and had arrived at UBC with a master's degree from another institution and 2 previous tenure-track positions at U.S. universities. To quote from Quillette, not current article, MC had been shown to have continued seeing Galloway for about 2 years after the alleged violent rape, which she explained was from a form of Stockholm Syndrome known as traumatic bonding. After Galloway broke off the affair, and while MC was initially very upset, they eventually had a friendship with occasional conversations. However, 2 years later, Galloway believed MC was about to tell school administrators about their affair, so he left phone messages with MC, including one where he'd said he'd turn himself in. This turning himself in was about confessing to the affair, but was used to show school administrators that he was guilty about the alleged violent rape by accusers. Probably shouldn't use those words. The other 19 complainants never came forward with allegations, but it seems the accusation, voicemail played out of context, and promise of more people coming forward were enough to get him suspended and then fired from UBC. For more details, check out the Quillette article written by Brad Cran. Because it's long, I mean very long, and detailed, Diana Davison will be covering this in a series of videos. Link in the low bar. Well, link to the patron page is in the low bar, which will take you to the links to the sources. Here is one detail I thought would be good to mention here. Less than 1 business day had passed from the time that an unproven 4-year-old allegation had been brought forward by Rooney on behalf of MC, yet Galloway's fate was essentially decided in that room. I saw Stephen called a rapist, said a creative writing instructor who still works within the department and spoke to me on condition that they remain anonymous. I saw anyone who dared defend him called a rape apologist. I've watched the department go from a vibrant, welcoming place to a place full of cautiousness and fear and closed doors. So this is a story that's ongoing, but this guy's life is pretty much ruined at this stage, at least. Does anybody have any thoughts on the story?
Yeah, this is basically guilt by accusation here. He what it basically says in that article is that they decided he was guilty because the accuser said there were other accusers. That's incredible. And if anything tells you, that the system that's been set up for university adjudication of accusations like this it's just completely worthless. It's stories like this. Now, granted, if you're in a position of authority, even if it's just as a professor in a classroom, you don't have affairs with people who are under your authority. It's just a very dumb idea. But that does not constitute deserving of anything like this. And this also demonstrates why it is so very important for legal reform, any legal reform in terms of sexual misconduct allegations, to include anytime it is conclusively proved the same standard for proof as any other crime, that the accuser filed a false accusation, that the accuser made a false complaint, that the accuser lied in court, that the accuser wasted police time. There should be prosecution. The accuser should face criminal repercussions for that, if that is the case. And it sounds like in this case that's the case. They're not going to have anything like that at universities. and they're not going to have necessarily anything like that regarding universities in the legal system. If we're going to have laws that say that the university system has to handle this stuff instead of the courts and act like they are the courts, then we need to have an equivalent for perjury laws for university students who file false accusations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, pretty much this is what happens when you don't have any penalties for perjury, and people can just decide to accuse people. And this guy, now of course, he probably shouldn't have been messing around with this girl. I think that should tell you, you don't, not just because you risk falsely being accused of stuff, but also it's just not good for your marriage to do that. You should probably deal with the issues in your marriage, but you don't want people using that as leverage against you. And I don't want to shame
it's
the
not
guy.
good all
mainly.
around.
It's not good all around is my point. Yeah, exactly. But this is like beyond the pale. Like this is not the kind of punishment that this guy should get. I got some super chats about this. Joey Jojo gives us $2. He says, all the good women are gay, taken or both. That was the response to Cassie J. Frank Tomeo gives us $2 Canadian and says, academia is insanely fucked, Hannah. And Daniel Peck gives us $20 Australian. Thanks, Daniel. That's great. And says, nursing a broken foot. Your stream helps so much. Thanks. Well, I'm glad that you're finding it entertaining. And then
euphemism. Are you actually nursing a broken foot? I can't even think of the dirty thing it would be a euphemism for. I'm reaching too much now.
I think it's just genuinely nursing a broken foot. I think. Is it your foot that's broken that you're nursing? I guess is the good question to ask. Frank Tomeo gives us $2 Canadian and says he only got 167K. That's it. He got screwed. Yeah, he's running on
it probably
fumes.
cost him that much to fight that battle.
At least. Daniel Peck says yes, it's his foot, so it's not a fetish. It's not a fetish. It could be. It's probably a fetish someplace. All right.
Get better soon, Daniel.
Yes, get better soon, and thanks for coming on our show. Or maybe not. Maybe you have to have a broken limb to listen to HBR. I kid. All right, so does anybody else have any thoughts on this story?
No, but just that super chat. Cue all the feminists out there saying that HBR is a show for broken men.
Tyler Preston gives us $5 and says, I remember how Jackass Rational Disconnect said how what happened to Stephen Galloway was just him having a victim complex. RD is a douchebag. Yeah, it's funny when men are victims of things, then they feminists and SJWs, they cry that they make this sort of you drink your tears, your male tears, but they're also saying men should talk about their feelings more. Fucking hypocrites, assholes. Yeah, so I don't know. We'll follow the story as it goes on, but definitely look at Diana Davison's content. She specializes in this. And I think she started a video on this already, but she's going to be going into a lot more involved with this story as it goes on. So if you're not subbed to Diana Davison, go do so, because she does good stuff there. It's just got a specific focus, which I think I can appreciate. All right. So we're going to go ahead and get out of here. Before we do, I wanted to show you the article we're going to be talking about. This is from Katie's Game Corner. It is the truth about sexual harassment and board gaming, because, it's another space made by men that was carved out that they take a particular interest in. And when I say that, I want to be clear, because when I say board game, I don't mean Monopoly and Sorry and shit. There's like a rising or a new sort of subgenre of board games where they're kind of modern and they're more complex and there's a lot of involvement. They tend to be a lot heavier than, say, Candyland and Monopoly and shit in their own way. And they've grown a lot in the last decade or so. So it's not Clue. It's not that stuff. That's like the mainstream family stuff. This is sort of this is different. These board games, and they like tabletop gaming, like video games, like any other hobby that's dominated by men. They're basically being the people in the fandom are being attacked by supposedly other people that care about the fandom, but we're going to the article and you'll see. There's just another GamerGate waiting to happen, basically. And I'm telling you, I did this on a stream I had on my own channel. Try this. I want you to do this. Go to Google and put in sexism in, and then put any male hobby. Any male hobby. Anything. Golfing, fishing, anything that's typically dominated by men. I'm not saying like exclusive to men, but typically male dominated. Any of them. And there are articles and blogs on how those things are sexist. Absolutely. Anything. Sexism and train spotting. I'm sure it is a thing. I'm sure it is. Try it. Sexism and jacking off? Absolutely. That by default. Sexism and mountain biking. There was already a thing about that. It was like sexism in what was it? In cycling in general. They also made it a white thing too, because put the cherry on top, right? So sexism and sex, that's probably the first thing that was ever got called that. Somebody was going to say something? Mike, is that you?
Sexism in shopping. Oh wait, no, that's a woman thing. There's no sexism in shopping.
No. Anything. Sexism in the air. Yeah. That's a male that's not that actually breathing air is not male dominated. That's female dominated. Cuz there's more women. Although maybe men take deeper breaths. Maybe there is a thing about that. Maybe we use up more oxygen with all of our exercise.
We manhail on the subway all the time.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. It was well done where it's only 6 o'clock and we got through all the stories. I might see you guys later in the week, but otherwise the next time you hear from me will probably be from Calgary when we have some streams talking about the progress of the legal case. So I hope to see you guys then, if not earlier. In the meanwhile, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. We're going to go into the after show. If you want to be a part of that, you have to become a patron. Go to www.patreon.com/honeybadgerradio. Thank you, Mike J, Mike S, and Hannah for joining me on this week's HBR News Show. And thank you guys for watching. I'm going to do one more. Make sure that I didn't miss any super chats. I did not. So we're good. I'll talk to you guys later. Thank you. Have a